If you have thought about trying to quit smoking and kicking the habit, you're not alone. Nearly 7 of 10 smokers say they want to stop. Quitting smoking is one of the best things you can do for your health. And many people, however, have now turned to e cigarettes in the hopes that it could help them quit smoking. E cigarettes or vapors or vapes, I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, uh, thinking that these are less harmful and they are less harmful than cigarettes. But here's what you need to know about vapors or vapes and e-cigarettes. And joining me to tell us more is Peter Ucko, the CEO of TAG, Tobacco, Alcohol, and Gambling Advisory Advocacy and Action Group. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mariam. Salam alaikum. How are you? Are you all well, happy, and delighted? I would hope.
Walaikum salam. Shukran for joining us once again, Peter. And we are doing well here despite everything. Well, there is nothing to be worried of as long as we are here, and we thank God for that. Right. So, vaping. I know that we have spoken about this in the past, but now because of the proposed bill to regulate it with cigarettes, I think it's fair that we open up the discussions again. So, what is vaping?
Well, yes, it is great that we can open the discussion again. I think there is good public support for it, but there is a little bit of misunderstanding, and maybe we
Hmm.
can clear that up and answer the questions of many of your listeners. So, the first thing I'd like to kick off with is, Mariam, let's get rid of the word vaping. Vapors, vaping devices. Let's just kick that out into the outfield and out of the stadium. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's an industry term. If you go back to the time when electronic cigarettes were actually little devices that looked like a cigarette, and when you took a puff on them, a little bit of kind of, which they called vapor, came out of your mouth. It was a tiny little puff, almost of steam. The problem is when we say vapor, we think as human beings about water vapor. Well, that's just water vapor. It's kind of harmless. But these days, it is not a vapor that comes out of those devices, and they no longer e-cigarette. They've become huge electronic devices on which we suck. So there's nothing romantic about it. It's not like, oh, Mariam, what do you think? In our next break, shall we go outside and vape? Doesn't it sound nice, almost romantic? But it's not vaping. It is sucking on an electronic device that emits an aerosol which contains toxins, poisons, addictive drugs like nicotine, which we know is a highly addictive drug, and chemicals that cause cancer. So let's call them what they are: electronic nicotine delivery systems, and we suck on them, which is not pleasant, is it? And if you like, we can get rid of that and talk about the health aspects and why they should be regulated.
Hmm. Right. So, and what's the difference between smoking cigarettes and vaping? Because there is this misconception that cigarettes or smoking cigarettes is more harmful compared to vaping.
Well, there are comparisons. So let me first draw a comparison. If you were standing on the motorway and you were knocked over by a small entry level car, I'm not going to mention brands or anything, but a little car that the youngest of students might drive, and it knocked you at, say, doing 60 kilometers an hour. Or alternatively, a 25-ton truck came steaming down the motorway at 100 kilometers an hour and it knocked you. I think they're both dangerous, but are there degrees of danger? Which way would you be less dead? The small car at 60 kilometers an hour or the big truck at doing 100 kilometers an hour? And the answer is simple: dead is dead. So let's look at cigarettes and electronic devices. Harmful is harmful. Now, if we have a measure, there is evidence to indicate that the electronic devices are less harmful than combustible tobacco cigarettes. But they're not harmless. They are harmful in many ways. The difference is tobacco contains dried tobacco leaves, the cigarettes, and you set fire to them with a match or a lighter, and they are combustible and they create tar. There are 7,000 chemicals, more or less, in tobacco smoke. Secondhand smoke, same thing, that non-smokers inhale and it causes harm. Of those, about 80, 85, there are debates about it, are carcinogens. 200 are poisonous, so what do you want to do? Ingest 200 poisonous chemicals, 80 of which cause cancer, or do you want to go to an electronic device which has fewer poisons and fewer carcinogens? I'd rather have zero. So
Mm.
they're harmful. Are they safer? They're not safe. So the idea is give up on all those devices. Nicotine is nicotine. It's a drug. It's forbidden. Let's get rid of that and however you take it. It's not nice. It's not romantic. It's not harmless. It's not safe.
Mm-hmm. Right. There is, well, and we know that second degree smoke from cigarettes is harmful. Now, what about that from vaping? Is it just as harmful?
The aerosols that are emitted by these electronic devices contain poisons and cancer causing chemicals. Simple, yes, it is harmful. The exposure of those aerosols to anybody else, any other human being, and especially the youth, and particularly infants and babies, is dangerous and harmful. Please don't do it. There's no need for it. It's just not necessary, not clever, not wise, not intelligent. Please stop it.
And what impact does vaping have on the environment itself?
Well, let's look at our Constitution. Section 24, I think it is, says that everyone has the right to an environment that's not harmful to their health or well-being. As soon as you put these elements into the environment, whether it's secondhand smoke or side stream smoke or third-hand smoke, as you get from cigarettes, or the aerosols that you get from the electronic devices, they harm the environment. They make them less safe, they make them less healthy, and we should get rid of them as much as we possibly can. So that's the harm they do. They put chemicals, poisons, and cancer causing agents into the atmosphere, into the environment, and it's harmful to health.
Hmm. In December, the National Treasury released a 32-page document in which they outlined that they're considering taxing e cigarettes and vapor products, but the vaping industry isn't happy with how things are unfolding. So, should smoking and vaping be regulated the same way?
100%, there's no question. Where smoking is banned,
Mhm.
electronic devices or the use of those electronic devices, and I say again, this is not vaping. It's sucking on an electronic device. And yes, they should be regulated in the same way. They should be banned in the same way. Advertising should be dealt with in the same way. That is banned. And the packs should be regulated in the same way as cigarettes are, electronic devices, with graphic health warnings, with health messages, and all the elements that we ascribe to combustible tobacco products should be regulated in the same way for those electronic devices. There's no question about that. The Treasury document, by the way, was very well researched, it was very well written, and it gets to the conclusions that I'm telling you now. Use of electronic devices is harmful. The one very important thing that they did is that in England, the National Health Service thinks that the use of electronic devices is good. That's the only system in the entire world that thinks they're okay and that they can be used as smoking cessation devices. Our Treasury document dismissed that in its entirety. A very good move. Yes, we have to regulate them the same way. We have to tax them in the same way, and there's a reason for those taxes, which I can explain.
Mhm. Now we see that it's a growing trend, especially amongst the youth. The age is becoming younger and younger. So how can we encourage them not to vape, even though many of them are already doing it? Their friends are doing it. If they're not smoking hookah, then they are vaping. So how can we encourage them not to do this?
Well, there's several ways that you can do that. First of all,
Mhm.
de-romanticize it. And that's what we did with cigarettes. You know, the glamour of smoking cigarettes, which the cigarette companies advertised for decades, should be removed. It's not glamorous. Electronic devices, exactly the same as cigarette devices, should never be advertised, glamorized, romanticized, promoted in any way. These products are harmful. And the great danger is that the former manufacturers of tobacco products, of cigarettes, are now the owners of these manufacturers of electronic devices. So, what do they want to do? They only have one objective only: make a profit to pay dividends to their shareholders. They don't care who suffers and dies in the meantime. They don't care if it harms babies and infants, and they market these products to teenagers. So that marketing and that advertising must be stopped. As I said, health warnings, graphic health warnings, and other messages must be provided, and education is the key. The danger is that these youth who now get into smoking these devices, often because of flavors, must be stopped. The flavors should be banned in its totality. But they have very enticing, romantic, exciting sounding names for a whole lot of flavors. There's like, I think, 7,000 flavors available in South Africa, something like 16,000 flavors around the world. The youth are enticed by those flavors. Here's the danger: they get addicted to nicotine, and by the way, Marion, certain information. Even in the non-nicotine liquids that are available for electronic devices, nicotine has been identified. Either natural nicotine, which is extracted from tobacco leaves, or nicotine salts, which is artificial. Both of them are addictive. So what happens is kids and the youth and young people who start using these devices because they think it's flavored, it's nice. All these exotic, exciting flavors. Then they get addicted to nicotine, and then the big danger, they become dual users. They convert to smoking combustible cigarettes because combustible cigarettes give you a bigger nicotine hit, and that's the danger. So they start off using electronic devices, they continue smoking combustible cigarettes, and then they run all those additional risks of combustible cigarettes in addition to the risks of electronic devices. And they are dangerous. They are not safe. They are harmful. We now have them converting to smoking combustible cigarettes. Premature death, lung cancers. Electronic devices are harmful to your arterial system, particularly. They've seen an increase in pancreatic cancer, which we know that's a death sentence. You can recover from many cancers. There are treatments and operations and harms that can be removed, for example, for breast cancer, which is huge suffering for women. And by the way, men can get breast cancer as well. Those can be treated. Pancreatic cancer, sorry, it's a death sentence. Ask me another question and I'll tell you more. But yeah, we can talk about tax. Shall we do that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's one way. Tax is a tool to do two things. One is, of course, for the fiscus, it provides income to the government. That income can be used for all sorts of things, like education, like health services for the public, clinics, and all those sorts of things. What taxes can do and should do, if they are correctly implemented, is to make the retail selling price of the products more expensive. So we increase the retail selling price, make the products less and less affordable over time, and hopefully more of the youth will never start to use these products, and more of the youth who are already using the products will stop using them because they become too expensive. So tax is a wonderful tool to reduce consumption, to reduce harm, and to reduce the use. That harm, by the way, includes disease, disability, and death.
Hmm. Right. And how can one quit smoking altogether and not just jump ship from cigarette smokes to e-cigarettes and vaping?
Yes, quitting smoking or quitting the use of electronic devices is pretty much all the same thing. And the electronic devices have been proven now over many years not to be good tools to help people to quit smoking cigarettes. But the mechanisms are very similar in cessation. The first one is, Marianne, make the decision. And the decision is to quit, to stop using those products, to stop totally smoking, to stop sucking on the electronic devices. It's not to try. When you make the decision that, oh, you know what, I'm going to try to stop smoking, that doesn't work because if you fail, which does happen, you can always give yourself permission to try again. Whereas
Hmm.
if you make a firm decision, I quit smoking, I am now a non smoker. I quit using electronic devices. I am now a non user. I am a non vapor, if you like, to use that
Hmm.
term. I do not use these products. Decision made. Now, what happens is you will, quite likely, get a craving for nicotine. It's a hugely powerful drug. So you'll get that craving. It's like, whew, I want my drug. I need my drug. I need to have a suck on this electronic device, or I need to have a suck or a puff on a cigarette. The good news is that that craving is temporary. So you can do several things to help you stop. The first is delay the decision to smoke. You've already made the decision to quit. You are now looking at yourself as a non smoker. When you get a craving, you say, okay, you know what? I'll reconsider if I'm going to have a cigarette or suck on my electronic device in 5 minutes. So delay the decision, and in 5 minutes, you know what will happen? Craving gone.
Hmm.
One of the other things to do is drink water, and that helps you to delay the decision to use the electronic device. And the other is deep breathing. There's a lot of these D's that we promote. So drink water and deep breathing. So you take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, relax, breathe in through your nose slowly, hold the breath for a moment and breathe out through your mouth slowly. You can do it for a count of 5 or 10, depending on how well developed your lungs are, or to what degree your lungs have already been harmed by smoking. That deep breathing relaxes you, gives you time for the craving to pass, and gives you time to think about, do I really need this? After a few deep breaths, craving gone, you don't need to smoke. Now you're a non-smoker. You're a non-user of electronic devices, and you stay that way. In an hour or five, what happens? You get the craving again. Doesn't matter. You do the same things, and the craving goes away. Now here's the good news. The time between the cravings gets longer and longer, and the strength of the cravings gets weaker and weaker. And eventually, you get no cravings and you get no desire to smoke, and you just remain a non smoker or non user as per the decision you take. And you can make that decision right now. You don't have to delay. What you can say to yourself is that my last cigarette was, in fact, my last cigarette, and you're a
Hmm.
non.
Hmm. Well, it definitely takes a discipline. One needs to be very disciplined and be committed to not smoking anymore and not using any of those products. Peter, thank you so much for your time and for unpacking that with us today. We will catch up with you once there's more information regarding the bill and if it has been passed, because we do know that if the bill is passed, any smoking in public will be banned, and rule breakers could face a 3-month jail sentence. So that is interesting to know. So we will wait and see once the bill has been passed. But for now, thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Murray. I'm happy to talk to you at any time. Certainly, the best thing that anyone can do, and all of your listeners who do smoke and use these electronic devices, the best decision you can do for yourself, for your life, for your family, for your children, and for your pocket is make the decision to quit. And please make that decision now. Thank you. I'll speak to you all again later.
Thank you. Bye bye. That was Peter Ucko, the CEO of TAG, Tobacco, Alcohol, and Gambling Advisory, Advocacy, and Action Group, taking us through the difference between smoking and vaping, and should they be regulated the same way. While there is a lot going around this regulation bill, we will catch up with Peter once it has been passed. For now, stay with us. We will be right back.